everybody. Welcome. If you are going to be in the chat, we're going to go ahead and pray because I think that's the best thing to do. Father, we come before you in the name of Yeshua, and we give you glory and honor and praise. And Father, we thank you for this day of rest. We thank you that no matter what's going on, that we can rest in you, that Yeshua is our rest. And that, Father, we have the word that brings forth life and that more abundantly, and that we are part of your kingdom. Father, open our eyes to see and our ears to hear your word today. Let it bear great fruit within it. Let the seed go within our hearts and our minds. And Father, bring forth life and that more abundantly. Oh, Father, we give you praise. We give you glory. We give you honor. We exalt your holy name, for you are good all the time. We thank you for all that you've done. Have your way in this Torah Portion time. Have your way in service today. Father, just show yourself. We come in great expectation to sup at the King's table, to sit in with you, Father. We give it all to you in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach. Amen. 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 We're just going over one chapter, but it's a great chapter, right? I mean, it's basically one chapter, right? So everybody who's around, get your word out. Is there anybody who would like to read the Torah portion?
I'll read it.
Thank you, Brent. That would be great.
Is it all of 25?
25 through first two verses of 26.
Okay. And the Lord spoke to Moses on Mount Sinai, saying, "Speak to the children of Israel and say to them, when you come into the land which I give you, then the land shall keep a Sabbath to the Lord. 6 years you shall sow your field, and 6 years you shall prune your vineyard and gather its fruit. But in the 7th year there shall be a Sabbath of solemn rest for the land, a Sabbath to the Lord. You shall neither sow your field nor prune your vineyard. What grows of its own accord of your harvest you shall not reap, nor gather the grapes of your untended vine, for it is a year of rest for the land. And the Sabbath produce of the land shall be food for you, your male and female servants, your hired man, and the stranger who dwells with you, for your livestock and the beasts that are in your land, all its produce shall be for food. And you shall count 7 Sabbaths of years for yourself, 7 times 7 years, and the time of the 7 Sabbaths of years shall be to you 49 years. Then you shall cause the trumpet of the Jubilee to sound on the 10th day of the 7th month. On the day of atonement you shall make the trumpet to sound throughout all your land. And you shall consecrate the 50th year and proclaim liberty throughout all the land to all its inhabitants. It shall be a jubilee for you, and each of you shall return to his possession, and each of you shall return to his family. That 50th year shall be a jubilee to you. In it you shall neither sow nor reap what grows of its own accord, nor gather the grapes of your untended vine. For it is the jubilee; it shall be holy to you. You shall eat its produce from the field. In this year of jubilee, each of you shall return to his possession. And if you sell anything to your neighbor or buy from your neighbor's land, you shall not oppress one another. According to the number of years after the Jubilee, you shall buy from your neighbor, and according to the number of years of crops, he shall sell to you. According to the multitude of years, you shall increase its price, and according to the fewer number of years, you shall diminish its price. For he sells to you according to the number of the years of the crops. Therefore, you shall not oppress one another, but you shall fear your God, for I am the Lord your God. So you shall observe my statutes and keep my judgments and perform them, and you will dwell in the land in safety. Then the land will yield its fruit, and you will eat your fill and dwell there in safety. And if you say, what shall we eat in the 7th year, since we shall not sow nor gather in our produce? Then I will command my blessing on you in the 6th year, and it will bring forth produce enough for 3 years. And you shall sow in the 8th year and eat old produce until the 9th year, and until its produce comes in. You shall eat of the old harvest. The land shall not be sold permanently, for the land is mine. For you are strangers and sojourners with me. And in all the land of your possession you shall grant redemption of the land. If one of your brethren becomes poor and has sold some of his possession, and if his redeeming relative comes to redeem it, then he may redeem what his brother sold. Or if the man has no one to redeem it, but he himself becomes able to redeem it, then let him count the years since its sale and restore the remainder to the man to whom he sold it, that he may return to his possession. But if he is not able to have it restored to himself, then what was sold shall remain in the hand of him who bought it until the year of Jubilee. And in the Jubilee it shall be released, and he shall return to his possession. If a man sells a house in a walled city, then he may redeem it within a whole year after it is sold. Within a full year he may redeem it. But if it is not redeemed within the space of a full year, then the house in the walled city shall belong permanently to him who bought it throughout his generations. It shall not be released in the Jubilee. However, the houses of villages which have no wall around them shall be counted as the fields of the country. They may be redeemed, and they shall be released in the Jubilee. Nevertheless, the cities of the Levites and the houses in the cities of their possession, the Levites may redeem at any time. And if a man purchases a house from the Levites, then the house that was sold in the city of his possession shall be released in the Jubilee. For the houses in the cities of the Levites are their possession among the children of Israel. But the field of the common land of their cities may not be sold, for it is their perpetual possession. If one of your brethren becomes poor and falls into poverty among you, then you shall help him like a stranger or a sojourner, that he may live with you. Take no usury or interest from him, but fear your God, that your brother may live with you. You shall not lend him your money for usury, nor lend him your food at a profit. I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, to give you the land of Canaan, and to be your God. And if one of your brethren who dwells by you becomes poor and sells himself to you, you shall not compel him to serve as a slave. As a hired servant and a sojourner, he shall be with you, and shall serve you until the year of Jubilee. And then he shall depart from you, he and his children with him, and shall return to his own family. He shall return to the possession of his fathers. For they are my servants, whom I brought out of the land of Egypt. They shall not be sold as slaves. You shall not rule over him with rigor, but you shall fear your God. And as for your male and female slaves, whom you may have from the nations that are around you, from them you may buy male and female slaves. Moreover, you may buy the children of the strangers who dwell among you, and their families who are with you, which they beget in your land, and they shall become your property. And you may take them as an inheritance for your children after you, to inherit them as a possession. They shall be your permanent slaves. But regarding your brethren, the children of Israel, you shall not rule over one another with rigor. Now, if a sojourner or a stranger close to you becomes rich, and one of your brethren who dwells by him becomes poor, and sells himself to the stranger or sojourner close to you, or to a member of the stranger's family, after he is sold, he may be redeemed again. One of his brothers may redeem him, or his uncle's son may redeem him, or anyone who is near of kin to him and his family may redeem him. Or if he is able, he may redeem himself. Thus he shall reckon with him who bought him. The price of his release shall be according to the number of years, from the year that he was sold to him until the year of Jubilee. It shall be according to the time of the hired servant for him. If there are still many years remaining, according to them, he shall repay the price of his redemption from the money with which he was bought. And if there remain but a few years until the year of Jubilee, then he shall reckon with him, and according to his years he shall repay him the price of his redemption. He shall be with him as a yearly hired servant, and he shall not rule with rigor over him in your sight. And if he is not redeemed in these years, then he shall be released in the year of Jubilee, he and his children with him. For the children of Israel are servants to me. They are my servants, whom I brought out of the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. You shall not make idols for yourselves, neither a carved image nor a sacred pillar shall you rear up for yourselves, nor shall you set up an engraved stone in your land to bow down to it, for I am the Lord your God. You shall keep my Sabbaths and reverence my sanctuary. I am the Lord.
Well, we have been talking about, I would think, Shemitah and Yovel for a while. Would you say? I mean, it's been like constant, coming up a lot in our Torah portions. And even when we've talked on first fruits, I know Pastor John talked about that on first fruits when we met. And so today I'm going to take a little different direction because I think we're getting some of the face value, the 50 years, the 49, the rest on the 7th, and our crops and our grain and our fields. So I'm going to sort of turn it on its head a little bit because there's more, right? When we search out the depths of the scripture. But before we get to doing that, I want to I said on your notes the chiastic structure, which if you guys understand that, everything is written because when something keeps coming up, it's because it's pointing to, it's like an arrow that's telling us, hey, here's this point matches this, and this matches this, and the very center is our theme. And so when we look at the structure of this Torah portion, verses 1 through 55, we see that it's talking about the law of the 7th year, the Sabbaths, the Jubilees. When we look at Leviticus 26:2, keep my Sabbaths. Well, didn't you just say that in the first part of 25? Yes. But he's trying to make a point. So let's find out what the center is, because then we see that it's going to talk about in detail the 7th year and things like that, and what the children of Israel eat on the 7th year. And we see those matching points. So our first theme that we see, the center point in this chiastic structure, is Leviticus 25:17 through 19. Therefore, you shouldn't oppress one another, et cetera, et cetera. Then the land will yield its fruit, and you will eat your fill and dwell there in safety. Okay, and then if you notice on your notes, I said it so it has that pyramid, that sideways pyramid structure. You guys see that in your notes? Okay. Right here, it's this, then it goes to this, then it goes to this, then it goes that, and that, and back out.
Yeah, okay.
And so what you see is your central axes are the themes, the basic, like exclamation points. Pay attention. This is my point I'm trying to get across to you. And so what do we see? The different axes is here. Redemption releases the house. Redemption, the release of the Levites. Freedom, right? Freedom in the house. Isn't that what we want more than anything? We want him, and through him, he is our freedom. And then we have another axis that talks about idols. We shouldn't make idols. Well, we've talked about that. Well, we know that, right? Hey, we've got that down, right? Do we? I think we as a people have this tendency to make idols of a lot of things in our lives.
Yeah.
It can be a good thing. Did you know ministry itself can become an idol? When it comes before God, when the work of God comes before God, that's a problem. And I've talked to myself on that sometimes too. But we can look at that, our jobs. Our jobs are really easy because jobs demand. Jobs want everything from us. They want to suck the life out of us, I would say. Maybe I shouldn't use that word. I apologize if it offended
That's
someone.
the right word.
It's the right word?
It
It doesn't have, well, that's why I said, because I know for Pastor John's job, he hasn't come home 3 nights this week because it's hail season. Hail season for an insurance adjuster is huge. It's actually when money actually comes into our house. But what it takes then, he works for several companies because one company can't pay enough. In fact, he was hired by one company. It was supposed to be the only job he has, and they promised XX, and we've never seen that. So he works for several companies, and so he's sent out. So he's driving all over Kansas, Oklahoma, New Mexico, Texas. He does that all day, but they want everything turned in by the next morning. Well, when you get through driving at 10 or 11 at night and it's due, and here's what they say, if you don't turn it in, we'll use the work you've already done and we'll give the money to somebody else. So what he's been doing, because it's that season, is I think he does this on the desk. Or or there's a couch over there. So maybe he goes and lays on that couch. I don't know, but it's been 3 nights this week. It's been a couple every other week too. But hallelujah, I praise y'all for the income. But see, that job wants to take everything from him.
Yeah.
And I know you guys have different jobs, but it does the same thing for you.
Yeah.
Wants to take away your family and do all this. And here's the problem is that many of us will go ahead and it becomes a lifestyle and we go ahead and keep bowing down to that job. And we push God aside, family aside, things like that. I know when I worked for the state, for the Department of Human Services, it was, I'd work and I'd bring work home. And I finally listened to a message by a pastor at that time. I mean, this is years and years and years ago. And it said, you got to learn to say no. And I did it. I was like, no. I get a salary. You want to work me 18 hours a day, but I still get X amount. I don't get more. I get X. No, I'm not going to do it. And that's hard because our jobs, and not just our jobs, our hobbies, so many things can become idols in our lives. But when that happens, that thing becomes the thing we're focused on. It becomes our lover, so to speak.
Yeah, I agree.
And it maybe it's not a welcome one.
Yeah.
But it's like we're having an affair with something other than Yahweh. And he is supposed to be the love of our heart and our life.
Yeah.
So, yes. Hey, Bob, I'll try to get you notes here in just a second. Anyway, so we see that central axis there of talking about the idols. And we need to be aware of that. And I think it's a constant check. We hear in the Torah about that a lot. Why? Because it's something we do a lot. We, as the people, have this tendency to find something we love or something we don't love, and it starts to consume us, or it takes away time from something that is Yah's. And so we have to watch that. Anyway, and then I wanted to bring up, this Torah portion is about the land resting. Yes, Raina.
You know, yesterday I was at work and I was supposed to get off at 2:00. And, you know, I work with this deaf guy, his name is Tony. And he was like, oh, yay, more hours for you. I said, no, I'm trying to do Shabbat. You know, I don't like doing it anyway. So, you know, I quit on them for Sunday because, you know, Bobby used to work with me on Sundays and now they said that he couldn't work with us, so I quit. I told him I quit the whole job. First started with Shabbat. Okay, I'm not working Shabbat. Well, you have to come in. No, I'm not. I don't care. So that one's already out there, you know. They already know I'm not coming in. I don't care what happens. The building can fall down, whatever. I don't care. You know, and so yesterday he was telling me, and so I left about 3:30, right? Yesterday. It was almost 4, but I left and I was like, I'm not staying here. And no lunch the whole time, you know, because the guy that was supposed to come in, he was sent to the pavilion. His wife sent him into the pavilion. You know, and so it was just a big old mess. So then I told him, he goes, more hours for you? I said, I don't care about them hours. I don't care about no more money. I'm good with what I make. I'm all right. I mean, they wouldn't give me a raise, period, but okay, it's not gonna happen like that anytime soon, so I hope. I mean, I do pray on it. Father, let them, you know, wake them up and tell them that I'm worth more than this kind of thing, but I'm patient. You know, I do have a job. I'm able to work it. I'm able to do what I need to do. But yesterday I was like, I told them, no, I'm not staying no longer than this. I'm not. And then they said Sunday, I don't know what to tell you, because that's my only day off for real.
That's right.
You know? So I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. Finally, my friend called me last night and he goes, hey, what you told me, I told him. It's against the law for y'all to have me here, and I haven't gave y'all consent. And I was like, you didn't know that, and you went to school, man? Like, you know? So he told them when I had told him, and they let him out, that man that goes and checks on them, he said, you're here and you didn't know that you were dead. You know, the girl signed for him, his wife signed for him, but she couldn't even do that. She wasn't supposed to be able to do it. And he didn't know what it was. I said, no, you have to know that this is what you're signing for.
Yeah.
You know, that you want to be in here. And he goes, so I've been sitting here all this time for nothing? And I was like, yeah. But they let him out last night. He called me like about, like, we prayed at 10, so it was like right before 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
You know, and so, yeah, so he'll get it for tomorrow, and I was just like, yay.
Yeah, hallelujah for that.
Yes, for
Hallelujah for
real.
that.
Because I was just like, I don't know about coming in, man.
But you know what? You have to take that stand. I can't tell you how many times I've heard people that want to keep Sabbath and they tell their bosses and their bosses say, especially if you're starting a job, if you'll tell them at the beginning, it really helps. But even at the beginning, and then they start, you know, if they can get you pulled away and you'll do it, then they can use that from then on. And you took the stand and said, no. And that's hard because it's the what if syndrome hits. But that what if syndrome is irrelevant. He says, don't do it. If that is our wedding ring and that's the sign that we're the bride, then, and somebody is forcing us to do something else and we're complying, what does that say? Do we become the adulterous bride? Do we become, as I preached, the concubine instead of the bride that I preached on several weeks ago? You know,
I
those.
told them, I said, I guess I'll be looking for another job.
But see, Raina, you're do what so many won't do. Man, what a mighty woman. What a mighty woman of God.
You know, I was blind for a little while, okay? My brother's crippled from his legs. He was my eyes. If I squint like this, I could see like shadows, but he was my eyes for a whole year. I went through that.
Wow.
A whole year. So, I mean, I made money with him like that. I got the jobs for him because I knew the people. All I did was talk to them on the phone. They would tell us what we needed to do. We would go do. For a whole year, I did that. You know?
Yes.
And I told my brother, shoot.
I wasn't with her yet.
But the Father was good to me, and He made it possible for me to be able to do what I did. He would walk me through the thing, and then I would feel everything, and then I would squint and see like I
Right.
know there was something in front of me or whatever. They said, "Man, you clean like
Yeah.
if you were really seeing stuff." But I mean, I got through it. You know, we got through it or whatever. You know,
Yeah.
and I'm grateful to the Father because my eyesight is not 100%, but it's good.
That's good. Well, hallelujah for that.
It's good. So therefore, I know that. I mean, when I got that job, I wasn't even looking. This
Right.
came and got me and put me there. You
That's
know?
definitely
And I
a
told him,
grace.
hey, I don't do Shabbat. I'm letting you know right now. Saturday,
Not happening.
I ain't going.
That's good. That's good. Well, since Shabbat's the seventh day, of course, we're talking about the seventh year, which is called the Shemitah year. Okay. Now, we just talked about not keeping Shabbat. You know, things are the seventh day. Well, what about not keeping the seventh year? Isn't that why Israel was kicked out of the land? Ouch.
I will vomit you out.
Well, that doesn't apply to me, though. I'm not a farmer. That's all about agriculture. I hate hearing this when people try to use the agricultural thing about the tithe. The tithe was established well before the Levitical priesthood and agriculture. And anyway, we're not talking about that today. But did you ever get to listen to those that I? Were they good? Did you? I sort of get every point. But anyway, so I want us to turn to 2 Chronicles 36:21. It's in your notes, so you'll have it there. I wrote it. I left those out for you this time. So somebody, you can turn in your word or you can read it from the paper, whichever you would prefer. Because as I said, if we're not a farmer, how does this apply to us? Well, I'm going to tell you how the Shemitah year applies, because do you think there's a possibility that there's something deeper than just the face value
Yes.
of the Shemitah year being the land that rests?
Yes.
Let's find out. Okay, 2 Chronicles 36:21. Who wants to read that for me?
To fulfill the word of the Lord by the mouth of Jeremiah, until the land has enjoyed her Sabbaths. As long as she lay desolate, she kept Sabbath to fulfill 70 years.
Okay. So could it be that if this part of the reason why they were exiled? That it's only when we understand the lesson behind the command, because there's always more. The command is the face value. There's always more behind his word if we'll search it out. But it's the glory of God to conceal a matter. It's the honor of kings to search it out. So we are going to look at something a little different. I want us to look at this. This is the 9th portion of the book of Leviticus. Okay, well, what does that matter? Well, we're going to look at some numbers because there's always a reason. Yes, man's the one that broke it down, but even the word, man wrote the word down, but who's the one that inspired the word? It came from Yahweh himself, right? So if this is the 9th portion, could it possibly have some value that we can learn from? Yes. Okay, so 9 in Hebrew is tet. Okay, and it's in your notes as well, because the letters also have value. If you've been listening to me teach or anything on Tuesdays especially, but even some on Shabbat when I preach in the other room or on Torah Portion, I go into a lot of this stuff. Why? Because there's value in it. It's like hidden things, and I want to know the hidden stuff. But it's not hidden if we'll actually purpose ourselves to search it out. Because the whole concept throughout Scripture is also about a blessing and a curse. There are good things. When you say your name, their name can carry good connotations and bad connotations. The blessings and the curses, if you follow him, what are you going to have? If you don't, what's going to happen? Curse, right? So this number and letter carries very distinctly blessing or curse behind it. And when you're walking in that covenant, you see that blessing. So really, we see this tet as representing two possibilities of man. It can either be for good or for evil. Now, when you look at this letter, it looks very similar to the mem, but the mem that says M is on this one has an opening at the top. The mem has an opening at the bottom. Okay, so the mem, water, it can mean chaos. The mem itself can be the waters of chaos. It can be chaos and destruction in that form, or it can be the living water. It can be the well. It can be a womb. Because what happens in a womb? There's waters that surround the womb, and in the womb, there things mature until they're ready to be birthed. And I'm going to tell you this Torah portion, though we look at face value about Shemitah and the Yovel, it's very much about being birthed, something being birthed within us. So the sages actually say that this inverted, it looks like an inverted mem, the tet, is like a woman who's pregnant. She's full of potential. There's potential life there. It can be aborted though. Accidentally, the other way, unfortunately. But until the actual birthing process happens, which possibility is what's going to happen? And that's the blessing or the curse. What is contained within this letter? It's sort of like something's hidden, okay? And there's a seed planted inside her. Look at that open, but the open one, the tet. So the seed's planted. The tet, if it sort of looks like a womb, as the sages say it's like a womb, then the seed would be planted here. Now, I talk all the time about your words, your thoughts, how they matter. I talked about toxic thoughts, 3 weeks ago was the message I gave. And I also say when an idea is, when you hear something and you think about it, or you say something and you think about it, well, usually the hearing comes before the saying. And you're sitting there. What happens in a womb? Something grows, right?
Yes,
It gets bigger. It gets bigger as it's nourished. So you're thinking about this bad thing, or you're thinking about whatever you put in front of your face, that silly television show, that movie, that book. There's a myriad of things that do not give God glory, or that do give God glory. Whatever it might be, though, we're sitting here thinking about it, and it's maturing. Have you ever thought when you start thinking about something, it just seems to keep going and going and going sometimes?
It never shuts up.
And it's like the annoying song in your head. Yeah. Side trail, but
Like, I'll go down that road and I'll fix another one for him in there.
but so what's happening there? It's like pointing to this tet is like pointing to the womb of your mind. Okay, so if there's something about my mind wombing the words, the thoughts, the ideas of whatever I'm listening to, how does that relate to Shemitah? Well, let's continue. How many of you would agree that words matter, that what you think about matters? If you think about something a lot and you're thinking of things that are terrible things that are happening to you and your life's rough, and somebody has a little bit of pressure added to you, what's going to come out of your mouth?
Punches.
Not necessarily.
Punches. That's a wonderful way to put it. I like that.
I like it.
But if all of that's really good, I think I need to use that in a message. Thank you, Raina.
Like you say, that'll preach.
That'll preach. But if you're thinking you have pressure put on you, but you say, no, I'm going to take those thoughts captive and I'm going to think of the things of Yah. You're going to think about it as, hey, I don't care what the finances are. His word says he shall supply all my needs according to his rich and glory. If those kind of things, you choose to think that way, and those things begin to build and get mature, and the pressure's put on what's going to come out of your mouth. Don't you be telling me that. I don't care what you say or what you try to convince me of. The word says, my God. Raina.
You know that I've gone through something like that, and I've been so upset that I know that I have to humble myself when it comes to that, and I turn around and I'll go in the restroom and I'll start crying. Like when I was at work, I mean, that lady just had me so like I could if I was who I was before, I would have choked her. I mean, that's how it was in my mind. You know, and so I had just got that upset to where I was just like, I went into my office and I started crying, and you know, my friend Tony, the one that's deaf, he just went in there and he just patted my back and he said, "It's okay, you did good." And I looked at him like, you don't even know what I did. You know? But I had to walk away. I've had to walk away several times, and I cried to myself. You know, I cried to myself, and I just asked the Father, like, can you help me with this part, please? Because if you don't, I'm going to do something very, very dumb. And I know that you know this before I speak on it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But I also don't say it out loud. I always say it like in a, like I'm talking to him in silence, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I know how that gets.
Terry, give one to Raina as well. Every adult should have one, even if they're married. So, okay. That's good. That's good, Raina. So here we have an upside down womb. Since the other one carries the idea of birth physically, do you think it's possible then that this Torah portion is, when you look at it in a deeper level, is going to be about the things that are planted in the field, in the womb, in the heart, in the mind, in the heart? Maybe. Because we have this opening, that seed that goes in at the top. But here's something else we need to remember. Yes, whatever we listen to, whatever we look upon, whoever we allow to speak into our life is if we allow bad things or good things, those things are going to be replicated. That's sowing seed. In fact, we're going to reproduce those very things. Like that. Will a kernel of corn that's planted in the ground produce broccoli?
No.
Is there any way whatsoever?
Nope.
So if the bad things are what you're listening to over and over, year after year, are they going to produce fruit that brings forth life in you and your home?
Nope.
No way.
Bad fruit.
Bad fruit. Okay, so if that is the case, then we need to be paying attention to what we're listening to. We need to be paying attention to what we allow in our minds. We need to be paying attention to what we're allowing to infiltrate our heart and our spirit, because what's going to happen in the 7th year, and we're going to get into more detail, what's going to happen in the 7th year is that everybody's going to know the fruit that where we've been for the last 6, where we were supposed to be practicing properly, because that's what we're going to be looking at in the fruit that comes forth from our life. Now, how did I get from point A to point B? We're going to go there step by step. Okay. So we understand that this womb, that the seed that's been hidden is on the inside, and it's waiting to be birthed, and it will be birthed. It will come forth. Okay. And that seed is what I've been talking about. And it's interesting because, it's calling our attention to dealing specifically with the words that are planted in our mind. That is the tet. What is being planted in our minds? That seed that's going to go from from here to here, or from here to here, or from there to here. What's being planted in our minds? And what kind of seed is it? Now, when I say the number 9, what is something else that you might associate with the number 9 that's in the word?
Ninth of Av.
No, oh yeah, I didn't put that one in there. The 9th of Av. Well, yes, but let's think about the fruit of the Spirit. There's 9, right? Now, in fact, let's read Galatians 5:22 through 23. And while you're turning there, I want you to think about what our conversation that we just had. What seed is being planted in our minds? Because if it's the seed that Yah has placed, if it's his word, if it's life, if we're hanging around like mind, like kind, if we're hearing his word, if we're contemplating his word, then all seed produces fruit of some sort. Then what is the probability that the fruit we're going to produce is from Galatians 5:22 through 23? Let's go ahead and read that. If somebody would do that for me.
But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, humility, self-control. Nothing in the Torah stands against such things.
Very good. Actually, my little kids should know that one because we do a song on that a lot. So you knew it, right, Chris? The fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, gentleness, and self-control. Yeah, there you go. So our kids know that too, but that's the kind of fruit we need in our lives, the fruit of the Spirit. So we realize that you can't have the fruit of the Spirit if you're not walking out with a consistent, here's the next word, intimate relationship with the King. And I said intimate. Can you have face value with Yah and necessarily produce fruit? Face value is probably not going to do it.
No.
It has to be intimate. He's supposed to be the lover of our soul, right? So there's a knowing that you're going to, when you know him, you're going to display these characteristics. And they're not just going to show up once in a while. Oh, there's a good one. Oh, yeah, there's some bad. I saw one good one. Do we really want a life that reflects that?
That's to say,
Yes.
if a husband and wife are not intimate, they don't produce fruit.
That's right. There's no way, well, there's always miracles. But I know of one virgin birth, and it was our Messiah, Yeshua. So there's always a possibility, but that's the one I know about. So anyway. Okay, when we're going through things, there's going to be fruit produced. When we're pressed, we're going to reveal some fruit. Now, I want you to think back on the last week, month, maybe even 6 months, year. I want you to think of some really some times that put a lot of pressure on you, and I want you to think about how you reacted. I've had some good ones and some bad ones. I can say, oh, that one was good. Oh, that wasn't so good. Oh, but I did good. Oh, but that one wasn't. We're going to know what we've been doing and what we've been thinking about, who we've been hanging, whose thoughts we've been allowing to bear fruit within us, because we are going to display that fruit when there's pressure put on. And that's what's birthed within us. There is a fruit birthed within us in our lifestyle, and other people know. Sometimes we think nobody can see, but everybody sees our life. In fact, people in the world are, or even are watching, trying to say, oh, see, you think you and your God make you better than me. You just did that. You just did that. You just did. You guys understand that, right?
Oh, yeah.
We're under a microscope. Now that we follow his word, we follow Torah, people are looking because they want to justify why they don't need to. To whom much is given,
Much is required.
much is required. So here we have the womb, something being birthed, the fruit that's coming forth from our lives, the fruit that came from the field of the things that we planted. Do you think maybe the Shemitah has something to do with revealing a birthing process of what's being planted? Is it an accident that it's the ninth Torah portion of Leviticus? Is it an accident that the Tet and the Mem go together and that there's something about birthing? No, because inside of you, Yah's trying to teach what needs to happen within inside of us, because we're going to birth whatever's been planted within us. And the result is going to be a blessing or a curse. And we find that during the Shemitah. You're going to eat whatever's been planted in the prior years. Because remember what happens to the field? You don't plant it. So there's something that you go reap what comes up naturally, what Yah produces. Now, I heard about, it's a field, it was in California, and I can't tell you who owns the field or something, but they're Torah keepers. And it wasn't this year, it's been anyway, no, maybe it was this year. I don't know. Some say this is a Shemitah year, of course. Others say it was 2017. Well, Yah's going to straighten it all out. I can't tell you. I know for sure. I don't. I don't. But whenever this was, the guy did not plant, and there was such an abundance of wheat coming up that they were letting people come in, and he was coming in and giving it to the poor. It wasn't just a few things like sparse. Wouldn't you think a field would look sparse with a little coming up here, a little coming up there? Why would we give God that kind of credit when he's the one that does supernatural, and he's the one that's going to feed us in the year of the Shemitah? Why would we think that he would do the little, oh, there's a little scraggly piece of wheat? No.
Yeah,
And I guarantee, maybe Yah's, whether it's the right year or the wrong year, Shemitah, he's honoring the Shemitah that the guy knows nonetheless. And because that guy is honoring Yah's word, it's an abundance. And then I think back and look at us, we don't even trust him on the little things. And how scary is it to think about, if you're a farmer and that's your livelihood, or anything else, that you wouldn't plant your field, and that 3 years of harvest was provided the year before, and you look at the year before and I'm like, that wasn't 3 years. Whoops. We are getting into right now where our governments and things are destroying food. I'll be really careful here. If weather, which has been controlled by man too, is not destroying what's being brought forth, the government, I believe, is now hoarding it. I think they're either destroying and or hoarding it underground for the things to come. And this is a day and an hour where, if this would be the Shemitah year or there's another year, that we are going to have to rely on his provision. And we physically, but by the same manner, we need to, if we weren't planting the seed that should be planted within our head, then our mouth will not produce life, and we won't have the faith to stand in the seasons ahead. But if we have been practicing his word, his Sabbaths, if we've been practicing and doing what he says, taking our thoughts captive, watching what's being planted within us, then in that 7th year, when his provision comes, we will have the faith to stand and see, because that's what we're going to be displaying out of our life, out of our mouth, out of our actions, out of everything we do. His provision. And just as an FYI, some plans, this is an update. Pastor John will probably talk more about it. Some plans were revealed or made known, and we need to be watching out for China. We trust in him. That's the bottom line. But we've always heard that people want to invade the shores. It's just possible it's coming up sooner than we thought. So I'll let Pastor John give you the rest of the
I
story.
saw that article.
You did?
Yeah.
on the Telegram.
Yeah, John posted it on Telegram.
Yeah.
I don't ever look at his Telegrams.
You're being recorded, right?
Yeah, I do. He knows that too. I just have him replay, like this morning, he came in and said, Sandi, blah, 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 blah. So I have the tape recorder live in person. So
You probably told him what to put on that.
yeah, so anyway, This is the time where we have to trust. Now, so sum that all up, we're going to live off of whatever we've chosen to allow within us. If it's been full of muck and guck, that's how we're going to live in that year where we have to stand in faith. It won't be a year of faith for us. It'd be year of hardship and death and destruction. That's 7th year. Of course, it's that way the rest of the time too. But we're talking about, we're reaping in that 7th year things we did not plant. We didn't have to plant the thoughts that keep coming up because our hearts were in the wrong place, doing the wrong thing, and what we were doing in our mind. And so those seeds have come to full fruition. Now, there's another number here that has meaning in our Torah portion, and it's 32. Why would I say it's 32? What is this? This is the 32nd Torah portion, okay? And it is also 32 is the Gemantria, or the numbers of the word zakah, number 2135. You have it in your notes, which means to be clean, be pure, be clear, to be justified. It has this sense of you're guiltless. I want to be innocent. What about you? That's what I want. I want to be found innocent, because we know the accusers there looking and saying, hey, Pastor Sandi did this and this, and I want to be found innocent. So Yeshua says, he's my advocate. He says, pride's paid in full. I don't know what you're talking about. That's what I want. But here we have this word zakah, to be found innocent, to grant somebody a right or a title, to have an account credited. And when we look at the root stem of several other words, we have these other meanings. Now, when something with the same number is in the family, it's going to have meaning to the word we're looking at. Okay, so though we're looking at 32, we have this idea of being pure and innocent, but these words also have a play on this word because they have the same number. A right, exoneration, oop, there's that word again, crediting. All of these words have that's legal jargon. It's legal talk. So what we find when we look at this 32, and it's talking about the Shemitah, then there's something that's here that's associated with the legal ramifications in the Shemitah year. Well, I would say yes, absolutely. Because we saw Israel being sent out of the land because there were legal ramifications of not honoring the Shemitah year. Okay? So now, if we're going to get only the English, we're going to mess it up. We're going to just think it's about agriculture, but it's not that. Here we have this Torah portion, and if we pay attention to this, we're going to finally be able to dig into the Hebrew meaning and reveal something that happens when we keep the Shemitah, when we understand that these concepts have legal ramifications. There's something about honoring the Shemitah year that can cause us to be declared innocent or guilty. And again, none of us want to be declared guilty, for sure. Okay, so that means, just as I said, when Hasatan comes around and says, well, she missed this and this and this, or didn't do this, and he comes to accuse you, we want the gavel to come down and say, that doesn't mean anything. So we want to be declared innocent. We want to go free. And isn't that Yovel, then we're going to talk about Yovel and even the Shemitah, isn't there a freedom associated with those things too? Absolutely. So here we have this Shemitah year where we're declared innocent. We get to go free. And here's what's amazing. It also means that our debts that may have piled up, now we have a credit. I don't know about you, but I have been standing on y'all's word for supernatural debt cancellation. I'm like, Father, I'm in your kingdom. I tithe. I bring forth offering. I live. I said, and your word says da 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 da. And you know me, I can. When it comes, I'll just start touting that scripture. And I said, you're the same yesterday, today, and forever. I've heard the accounts of others, and I want to be found debt free, not only spiritually, but I want to be physically completely debt free, like house paid off, nothing. Wouldn't that be amazing? Yeah. Would it be amazing to have us as the bride, if we are the bride, to be so identified that we're so close to him, that we've been living out, that we get this Shemitah year, that we've been following it, then that Yovel year, and we are declared innocent and our debts are removed from us. Yeah. All of a sudden we come home and Chris, somebody comes up and says, you know, this and this, somebody came in and paid it. I don't know what you're talking about. Or Terry, they look on the computer and you're saying, well, I'm paying this bill. And they say, well, It shows you have a zero balance. I have heard that happen before. I've heard the testimony of things happen like that. I've told you before, this wasn't debt. Well, some of you haven't heard the story. Some of you have. Is that one year Jonathan's tuition, it was when he was going to the International House of Prayer University. It was due, and it was due January 9th, and it was $1,743. I didn't have it. So I kept thinking, well, when I go to Shabbat, no, it wasn't Shabbat at that time. We were still meeting on Sunday. When I go on Sunday, surely somebody, because this was like 2008, maybe. We hadn't changed our days yet. We were studying Hebrew, but we hadn't changed our days. So nonetheless, I kept thinking, somebody from church maybe will bless us, or, something will be in the mail. Something's going to happen, because I said, your word's true. Now, one thing about me is that since I work a lot of hours a week, I work 60 to 80 hours a week. And of course, you guys know I don't get a paycheck. So, right now. But I kept saying, Father, I'm following your word, and I can't outgive you. You're going to take it. But because of that, if somebody would give me hold on, I got you. I'll get you. Don't let me forget when I'm done. If somebody would give me a $5 bill for some reason, or John had extra, I would go put it. I don't spend money. I save money. I'd go put it somewhere. I know where all my little places are. Or somebody $10 or something like that. And I'd store them. And so nothing happened. And it was Jonathan drove back to school. He drove back to Kansas City. And I was like, he says, where's my tuition money? And I said, honey, God's going to provide. I don't know how. I don't have it in my hand right now. And so he's at school, and it's 7:30 in the morning. And I've been praying. He has to pay the tuition at night. Wow. And I got on the floor, and I was in my quiet time, and God said, go get your money that you stashed. I was like, yeah, right. And I went and pulled out where my $5 bills were, and they were 50s. I went and pulled out where my $10 bills were, they were hundreds. I got pulled out to all my places. I had $1,749.
Wow.
God is good.
Oh.
Now, why did he wait? It was an hour and a half.
Because you weren't listening.
No, I think he just had me wait because he wanted me to live out what I preach, How many of you like to hear people giving you all these talks and they don't live it?
He was right on time.
He was right on time. That's right, Daryl. But that wasn't a debt cancellation, or yet it was, because Jonathan's debt for tuition was canceled. And I have no physical explanation to why, but I keep hoping every time I still do that. I'm like, you're going to be $100 bill one day.
I just have to keep watering it, and you're gonna
I
grow.
haven't seen it repeated yet, but I keep thinking it might be because I've seen him do it before. But I'm not going to limit him. He can do it a whole bunch of ways. But that's what happens. If Shemitah is canceled with supernatural debt cancellation, I not only want to follow it because I want to follow his word, but I want to experience that from him too. I want to experience that supernatural way he takes care of us in that 7th year and in that 50th, all these times, because we have been planting and pouring in to what his word says we should pour into our lives. But unfortunately, most of us at least pour some of the bad junk in there too, right? Okay, so here we have this. What'd you say, Linda?
We're mixing.
We are. I don't want to be a people of mixture, but how many of you still feel like there's a little bit of mixture left in you
More than
that you're
likely.
working to trying to get out? Yeah. Yeah.
Not a lot of that.
Anyway, we're supposed to let the land lay fallow. We're not supposed to sow the seed, and it's only in moving to the land of Israel. If that's what we think it's all about, and that's it, then we're missing the point, because his word is applicable to you and I today in the way we're living today. Yes, it's applicable to Israel and the land. Yes, it's applicable to even the land here, but it's applicable to us in a spiritual way as well. So when the accuser comes, there's nothing there that he can accuse. He may try. So there's two things that happen. We talked about debts and the people being released. We have to ask the question, could the whole purpose of the cycle be to teach me that if our debts are going to be released, if we're going to be tallied out to zero, if we're going to get a credit, that there are things that we have to do? Now, maybe some of us have been in debt so long we don't even know what it's like to be debt free. I don't know. To know no man anything but love. I don't know if that would be the answer or not. But we know we have rights. I know Raina was talking about earlier how somebody that she knew didn't even know their rights. Oh, Raina, you were supposed to talk and I didn't go for you. Sorry.
Well, I had one story, but Carlos reminded me of another one. I had went to go see my son the very first time he got locked up. I went to go see him, and it was me and my other grandchildren and my nephews that were with me. And we made it, and I only had enough money so we could go over there, spend a little bit of money,
Yeah.
to eat with him and stuff and come back, right? So we stopped at this cafe, and I got these plates to where we could share the plates,
Yeah.
and these people that were behind us had paid for our meals, and I didn't even know it. So when we got up there, the lady was like, "Your meal is paid for," and then I was like, I didn't pay for it, and the people that were behind us, they just looked at us and they said it was so awesome to see that a group of young people could just get together and pray before they eat.
Wow.
Yeah, and they paid for our meal. They paid for our meal, and then they were like, if we want to give more, we could get some more food. But we were content with what we had ate, But it was just awesome to have people that really think like that. That's how the Father works in that way. And then another time, when I was younger, I was working at a bar and stuff like that. And at the bar, I always fought.
Yeah.
All the time. So I had several tickets of fighting it or just fighting for my nieces, my nephews, my cousins, whatever. I was not the one to back down, okay? And so I had all these tickets and stuff, and I went to jail. It wasn't that. This is how he worked. This is what was so good about this is that when I went to jail for it, I got there and the bathrooms were disgusting up in there, okay? And I told them, I said, I'll clean this bathroom like he just sit in a cell because I don't know what it does to me. It just makes me feel like. So they let me clean these restrooms, and I had a month worth of tickets. They let me out in 5 days.
Wow.
Just because I cleaned those bathrooms like that. I cleaned every bathroom right before they brought down that jailhouse. That bathroom, all those floors, I cleaned all those bathrooms.
Wow.
And they were, but they paid me and they took all my charges from me, zero balance. And then on the day that I got sent home, it was snowing, it was Thanksgiving, and my kids were very, very surprised that I was at home. I walked from my house all the way down to, yes, I was happy. I walked all the way down. And then in sandals. Okay.
Sandals in the snow. My.
Uh-huh. And so I thought that was so amazing that the Father worked like that. Yes, at that time I didn't really know who he was, I didn't know who he was. I just know that all of us would get together and we would pray at 10 o'clock. We always prayed at 10 o'clock. Hey, it's 10 o'clock, let's pray. It's 10 o'clock, let's pray. And I've been doing this forever. And you can call it that it's, what was it he said? Like it's something that we're already used to doing or whatever, but I think this is a good thing because there's people that come to our house sometimes that don't even pray or anything, and we say, hey, it's 10 o'clock, we're fixing to pray, and we ask them if they want to pray with us or not, and we've never had a no.
Really?
In our circle. And so I remember one time, our circle grew from 5 people to almost 30 people in our circle at one time,
Wow.
So, I just think the Father is awesome, and more it's like he's just grabbing me little by little, you know, cutting little pieces off my head.
I love it.
So,
I love it.
yeah, I think it's good. I mean, it's not big portions, but it's a big portion of me.
That's, but see, that's what we are supposed to live off the testimony of our own life, of others, and of the word, the testimony of that word. And so when we hear things like that, does that not hearten you? Does hearing the testimony about the provision that Yah made for me hearten you when you're facing situations like that? When I hear something like that from someone else, it builds my faith. And that is why when we are supposed to look, our future, according to Hebrew, is not looking at tomorrow. Our future, if you look at it in the Hebrew, is we are looking not at the past mistakes and stuff. No, I'm not talking about that. We're looking at the testimonies of our own life, of others around us, and of that word. And our future is actually, our physical future is actually behind our head. Picture, how many of you have seen those long rowboats that you especially see them more? You wouldn't hear about them in the panhandle of Texas, but you might if you lived on the East Coast or something like that.
The ones they use for racing.
Yeah, where you have one person that sits in the helm and is calling out, and everybody else is sitting in the opposite direction, and they're rowing. So they're moving towards the back of their head. Well, that's what it's like. We trust Yah. We're looking this way. Our future's behind us. We're remembering what He's done for us. And Yah is guiding us along the way. So we're rowing and we're going towards our future, where we're standing upon the testimonies of what He's done for others, of what He's done for us. That's what that concept is. And so here we have the Shemitah year. Here we have this open text, that number 32, the number 9. All of these things are pointing to what's being birthed within us. And it shows us that our rights and our title, remember I said legal ramification, our rights and our title and are restored. They're restored when we show that the fruit of the Spirit has been birthed in us. And the only way it can be birthed in us is if the seed that's put within us is good for the fruit. Because as we said, corn doesn't produce broccoli.
Thank the Lord.
Lies, listening to lies in the occult and the news too. I'm sorry, but that too, is that going to produce life in us? Have you ever met anybody that's a news junkie and all they do about news? What comes out of their mouth when you talk to them? Well, it may be factual, but is it uplifting?
God's truth trumps fact.
Absolutely, because God's truth is more true than what we see and what we hear and what we feel. Absolutely. So those characteristics that show that we have been in His Word need to be displayed in our lives. And it seems that the Shemitah is this time that begins contractions that will make it evident, that will show everybody, show us too, what we've been housing on the inside of us, because now it's coming out. His mercy. We have 7 cycles prior to Jubilee, even 7 cycles of Shemitah that we can get it right, because we want our freedom. Get it right. He gives us time to practice. We practice on Shabbat. In fact, we have 6 days to get it right, and then on Shabbat, we should be showing it and doing it correctly. He gives us all these practices. We get a lot more chances than just 1 or 2 or 3, don't we?
Oh, yes.
We get He's new every morning. That's what the word says. Anyway, He gives us this practice. So when it comes to the Jubilee, our title, our rights, our inheritance can be restored to us. And prayerfully by this point, hopefully we are producing this fruit. Hopefully we get it right. I think it's interesting if we look at Shemitah, what does it actually require from us? It's an act of faith. It's a complete act of faith. The 7th year, we're being placed into a position where we're no longer in control. How does it feel when you're not in control? What would happen if all your jobs, they're wiped out in one day? You're no longer in control. You have to trust in someone else for everything. With the thought of that makes you sort of go, I don't want, I need to be able to trust in what my hand's doing. I need to help God out. Yeah, he can supply everything, but right now, let me go ahead and have my job and have that because I know it's going to help.
Not.
Well, it's true, and if we're honest, that's what when I said that, that's what every one of us thought. But am I right? Am I right? Mm-hmm. But okay, when we're in a position that we're unable to provide for ourselves by the work of our own hands, we trust completely in Him. Because there was an agricultural base back then, Shemitah was where everybody had to trust in Him. Right now, it's the few if you're doing Shemitah and you're a farmer. That's why it doesn't just apply to, it's not just that, it's deeper. There's more spiritual implication. And we need to realize that everything in the Word has a deeper and more spiritual application than just the faith. The faith value is true, absolutely, absolutely, but there's something deeper. We've got to believe that Yah is going to provide for our needs and He's going to do what He says. Do we believe, when we say, my God shall supply all my needs, do we really believe it? Have we ever been put to the test for that?
Yep.
I remember Pastor John, we were very blessed. At one point we worked he was an insurance adjuster for a big company. And we weren't doing six figures. We weren't doing close to six figures, but we were comfortable. We had purchased our home that we live in now 4 years before, and he got a new boss from the north. Because we're from Texas. Sorry, you guys. It was a Yankee. Okay, I'm just giving everything a hard time. But my whole family is from the north. They all act differently than us. So, but nonetheless. John was in charge of an office in the panhandle of Texas, and he had some of the best stats for his work in the state of Texas, but he got a new boss, and he was pastoring. The new boss came in, and he'd been there a little bit of time, but then somehow he found out John was also pastoring, and he came to him, and he said, quit pastoring or you're going to get me fired. Oh. Well, we try to live the word of everything we do. Guess what he did? He said, fire me.
Oh.
And I had just had surgery. This was in November of 2008. I had just had surgery for gallbladder or something. I don't know. And I was still taking all the medication that I used to when I was really sick. So my medication alone was $500 to $700 a month. And all of a sudden we had no job. We were living in the house we purchased 4 years ago, the one we still live in. And we went from a comfortable income to nothing. And that was a test. Let me tell you, John sent in, I would say, close to 200 applications. And they would all say, you're overqualified. We won't hire you. We're not going to do it. Unemployment started for a while. Of course, it ended. John still had no job. And that was nowhere close to the amount, because we as people, we tend to live off, our expenses tend to equal what we make, right? Yeah. So we're used to making this, and then there's nothing. Guess what happens in between? But somehow, Yah's provided, and we kept our home. We still have that same home. Does He come close to making what we did? No, we still don't even come close to that. Not even half. We don't even make half of what we did before. But Yah has provided. The pressure came on, and He took us to a place where we had to completely trust. And you want to know something? I don't remember ever hesitating. When John and I talked, he said, I will be fired if I do not quit. I don't remember ever hesitating on that one. There's something that's within me when it comes to the word of Yahweh. I'm like super bold. It's like something comes over me, and I'm not 5'2". I'm like 8 foot tall. At least that's how I picture myself in my head.
I didn't picture you as being that short.
And when it comes to the word, there's a boldness. Now, it's outside the word. I sometimes become a little bit wimpy. Yes, Raina.
I know I always have something to say, but man, this is good. okay?
Come on.
We got a new boss. Remember I told y'all we got a new boss? Okay, he's a Caucasian guy, however you want to say it, white guy.
He's white guy, white dude.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, he came from
Around here.
no, from China, somewhere over there. Okay, so he's been down there for like 9 years. Okay, his girlfriend is from down there, and from Thailand, like that way. Okay, and this feeling came to me when they told me, like, because I pray all the time, especially when I'm at work.
Mhm.
I pray before I start work. I prayed like I pray at 10 o'clock in the morning. I pray at 10 o'clock at night. You know, I pray with my workers.
Yeah. So cool.
So they know, like, if they come in, they know if they're not gonna get in our prayer circle, then they know they stand at the door. Don't come in here interrupting my prayer. You know? So this guy was like, I said, oh Lord, please don't let him be that type that I have to box over me having to pray to the Father. I said, because I'm gonna beat him up. You know, that's the way I was thinking, right? Because he had this attitude at first with me because I was praying with, you know, with my people and they're, you know, my workers, my friends.
Yeah.
You know, and he had this attitude. And I was like, oh, he's too short. I would really, really kickbox him. Like, I'm thinking like this, right? And I'm laughing because I'm really joking, but I'm really praying and I'm asking the Father, please don't let him be that type to tell me that I can't pray here. You know?
Yeah.
Please don't let him be that type. And if he is, first I'm gonna box him out because I'm gonna lose my job, and then I'm gonna give him reason for me to really lose my job, right? And I mean, all my workers were like, you're not gonna lose your job, you know, because you're the best one out of everybody and whatever. But he really had that attitude. So I went in and I talked to him and I said, look, I don't know who you pray to, but I know I pray to the Most High. And the Most High, yeah, that's it. I don't care, you can call the Most High your God, whatever thing, the thing you're talking about. I said, okay, but believe mine, it's not the Father. You know, and I said, and if that's what you like, that's cool, that's on you. But please don't come in my office trying to run things in my office. That's my office. And yes, I mean, y'all are our customers. I said, but I am my own boss. I told him like that, but you should see his face. He just looked at me like, and I didn't know how to come at him because, you know, I mean, they say all these big old words. I don't understand all that. You know, I said, me no speak English.
No habla inglés.
You know, yeah, you know, they tell me these big old words and I'm looking like, hey, I don't have my dictionary with me, you know? But I talked to him and I told him, I said, look, when we're in the circle, that means we're praying, okay? I mean, maybe my friends don't know who I'm praying to, but I do talk to them about him all of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever they have a problem, I mean, I do have my time with my friends, they're my family, you know, I work with them, you know? And so I said, and so when my door is shut, I appreciate it if you knock before you go in, because I might be busy praying. He was just looking at me, he goes, oh, you're fine, we don't have no problems. We don't have no problems. And I said, I just wanted to know, because at first he was like doing this right here, and he prays to a Buddha that looks like a girl. Yeah, he prays to a Buddha that looks like a girl. I mean, it's like
That sounds like a Shiva. I was about to say, that sounds Hindu.
It's got that head that goes
Right.
like this.
Oh, that's Hindu, I think.
You know, and that's what he prays to, but that's on him. Just don't bring him downstairs because my God is gonna beat him up, okay? You know, but it was just funny because at first he had that attitude with me, like, you know, and I was like, oh, please don't let him come up here with that because I really haven't really converted myself, or you could say, because I do still have that old me in me. I said, and behind you, Father, I'm ready to kick rocks. What's up? You know, but my friends are just like, they start laughing because of the way I talk. They say, Raymond, you're just too gangster.
Well,
but they understand.
You know what people also, when you know who you are in Yeshua, when you stand up for who you are in Yeshua and you do it boldly, because you understand, you know your identity. You're not a slave. You are the sons and daughters of the King of Kings.
Mhm.
You are part of the body of Messiah. When you do that, we know Yeshua goes before us and makes a way, but there's respect that can happen. Now it can be the opposite, like John. Okay, you're fired, but then that's God's plan anyway. So
Yeah.
again, this is how that's what I was going
And
to
I've
say.
accepted that too.
Yeah, when that happened, I said, okay, Father, we get the opportunity to live once again what we preach. That's always what I go back to. Okay, you want us to show everybody that we can live what we preach. Okay, but isn't that what people are looking for? Do they live? Linda, do you live what I mean, when somebody's looking at you, oh, you say you're a Torah keeper. You say you love Yeshua. You say you love Jesus. Do you? And then the pressure gets put on. We're watching you. We're watching you. And that's what it's all about. What have we been planting in the field? Because now we're about to reap what we did not sow this year because it's already been sown in previous years. So let's go back to the beginning and look on the mount, which is the very first word. So that's what this Torah portion said to me. And it is Strong's 2022, Behar. But guess what? A cognate in the family of words is this word hara, which means to be pregnant. Oh my goodness, here we're back at birthing something again. Ding, ding, ding. There's this, it's bringing us back to this idea to conceive. And it's conjugated as Behar, which is in her. Okay, who bears the fruit?
Women.
The women, the bride. The bride is supposed to bear fruit.
In the Hebrew, the Strongs. What number did you
It's on your
say?
notes.
Okay, but I'm lost in here.
Page 3, we're on page 3 at the top.
Yes.
So here we are. We now have birthing.
2022.
We have birthing, conception, and female, and her. So a bride and birthing something. And those are the words, the family words that start off in the mount of this Torah portion. So now it makes sense. Shemitah, birthing, concept in the mount, Behar. He's teaching us that the hearing of our words of Yahweh, what happened at the mountain? Yah spoke, his words were spoken and declared over us, because it said we were in the loins of our fathers, even back then. So here, the word was declared over our fathers, but it was declared over us. And we have this divine appointment that his word can be planted inside of us every Shabbat, that every day, actually, every time we are intimate with him. And here we have these words being planted, and we are to conceive and bear the child, to bring forth the fruit, because that seed will bring forth life. And every single Shabbat, we come to the mountain. Every single Shabbat, we come to that place where we can conceive. Every single Shabbat, we come to that place where we should be pregnant with his word, and his word bring forth life. We come and we hear the learned man or the learned woman or whomever speak, or one another speak into our lives, and we should walk away pregnant, at least with life, with excitement, with joy, with something that's changed on the inside of us. How many of you guys feel good when you leave on Shabbat?
Oh, yeah.
And then how many of you have that same feeling after you come home from work?
Yeah, right.
Well, Raina, that's good. We need to follow your model. You've been teaching us today, and we need to follow your model. That's all I can say. But because he's done something within our hearts and our life. And we come here and we receive. And that's what's so good. We have something planted on the inside, and it's going to grow if we let it grow. But then a lot of times we go throw up all over ourselves, spew out words that are weeds, and we pull up every good plant out there, and we wonder, why is there no harvest? Well, there is a harvest. It's just not the one we want, because we superseded everything God planted with us. We hear God's going to provide. Well, God's going to take care of us. Look what he's done to Israel. And then we go the next day or 3 or 4 days later and say, well, I don't know what we're going to do. This and this and this is happening. I'm stressed out. I'm just going to la, 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 la. What did we just do?
You replanted.
Everything.
Plowed it under.
And now we have a barren field. Absolutely. Well, no, because weeds are all over. It's bindweed. Ooh, maybe you guys don't know because you just came. Have you experienced bindweed yet? Bindweed is awful. It is. I think its roots can go down multiple feet.
To China.
And it's an awful weed. And what'd you say, Terry?
To China.
To China. Oh, and I don't know how to get rid of it. It's weed. It's terrible weeds. So
I see a picture that used to be a commercial. This guy in the U.S. was pulling on the weed, and his Chinaman on the other side of the earth was being pulled up, and then he pulled, and the U.S. guy would be pulled up.
By the way, when Bob said that earlier, he says, Weimar took us on the way to the tribulation. And I didn't say that part. And Bob said, hey, took us is always appropriate. So just, yes, Bob. Yes, Bob. So here we are. We're on the mountain. We're hearing his words. It's seed planted in our heart. It's supposed to bear fruit. We have this word, this prefix, beit, hay, and resh is how Behar is spelled, that her, in her. And the beit and the hay in Hebrew, guess what? It means in her. And then when we look at the Shemitah, it's about birthing in her. Well, who's her again?
The bride.
Okay. The Shemitah is about birthing in the bride. Well, we all know what's supposed to be birthed within us. But then we have the resh, which is that last word, that Behar, yeah. And it has two meanings. It can represent the head, what's first, what leads, chief. But here's what else it can mean. It also can mean it lacks nothing, but then it can also mean poverty. It can mean something that is lacking. It can mean what is last. It can mean something that's the tail. Remember in Deuteronomy, part of the blessings are you're the head, not the tail. So it looks like the resh, when you connect it, the bride has a choice to walk in poverty or to walk where there's nothing lacking, to walk as the head, to walk where she's first. In the Shemitah,
As the bride
that-
instead of the concubine.
the bride instead of the concubine. Well, the concubine is his, well, yes. But here we have this picture now that's connected to the Shemitah, that when we honor the Shemitah, when we honor his words, when we watch what's been planted here, as the text said, when we plant his word, get rid of the weeds, that we will lack nothing. But if we don't honor him, Shemitah, and his words on the mountain, we will lack everything. So when we look at this, the Sabbath year, it means Yeshua was beginning to teach Israel that the Shemitah was going to be a time of birthing. The Shemitah was going to be a time that the word that had been cultivated and maintained and watered and made sure there were no weeds around the seeds, that this was going to bear fruit. It was what was going to be birthed out of the bride. See how it's all pointing back to the same picture? Everything we're saying is pointing back to the same thing. Every word we're looking at is pointing back to that same thing when it has to do with the Shemitah year. And we know the bride is going to be tested. When we give birth, ladies, what happens when we give birth?
Pain.
Start screaming. No.
There's contractions. The contractions hurt. We may start screaming. We may not.
And they get stronger and stronger.
But they get bigger and bigger. But there's something that happens.
Give birth to
We have life. We give birth to life. Now, men, you may not physically understand that, though many of you have been with your wives.
Once it passes through, though, it's awesome.
What'd you say?
Once it passes through, it's awesome.
It is. That's true. I remember holding Jonathan, and I was like, I want to have another baby.
Oh.
I literally, he was in my arms screaming, ah! And I was like, I want to have another baby. It never happened, but it's true, Raina. That's a very true concept. But there's things that are being birthed in, because the bride is both of us. It's male, female. We are the bride. And there's things that are being birthed within us, but oftentimes it comes with trial and it comes with testing. Well, it does, because birth, what precedes birth? Trials and testing. And remember, every trial and test that you have, when you call it a wilderness experience, you come out of the wilderness in power. If you don't say, when Hasatan comes up, hey, I'll give you all this if you'll just bow down and worship me. No, we can't do that, because we will come out with power, promotion, and a new garment. And that's what we see here, the Shemitah. I'm not talking about the promotion and that part. that's other parts of the word. But the Shemitah again is about something being birthed in the bride that's been taken care of. So it seems that Yah is revealing to Israel that the Shemitah is a time of birthing in his people, and how we handle the Shemitah year, how we handle the Shemitah when he chooses to stretch us, to test our faith, will either cause us to be the head who leads, who lacks nothing, or it will cause us to be the tail who is last, who lacks everything. That's part of Carlos.
I have a question. Can we might not come to this, but it might not reference to being the tail as letting no one stays behind, like no one staying behind.
So you're meaning when he says you're the head, not the tail, it's that no one stays behind?
Staying behind. Like,
Oh, yes. In fact, when we look at those that came behind, which were sometimes the sick and feeble and things that were, they were attacked by Amalek. They were left behind, and I'm not just talking about the sick and that's sometimes circumstances which you can't help. But when we lag behind in what we're supposed to do, when we don't obey him, think about this. Have you ever told your kids this? I said this. Delayed obedience is disobedience.
Yes, ma'am.
Has anybody ever said that to their children?
Mm-hmm.
Said it to mine. Delayed obedience is disobedience. Ouch. That's not good for all the procrastinators out there. Delayed obedience is disobedience. So, Carlos, absolutely. Absolutely. Because you're lagging behind. That's a really good comment. You're looking at me funny.
I don't know if I said it
Well,
right.
speak it in English.
Oh my God.
Okay.
It took him a minute to figure out what you just said. I heard the wheels grind.
Oh, okay. Did I lose people? Did I lose myself?
He kind of lost himself, not you.
Okay. Okay.
I think it's referring to maybe the tail being the least in the kingdom.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Well, all I know is I don't want to lack. I want to be the bride that when he says do, go,
yeah.
I'm on it.
On it.
And I need to practice that. We all need to practice, right? Let's practice that. Okay. So he said that he's going to provide for all our needs. Now let's look at head. How much time do I? Oh, man. This is not good. I need more time, guys. Okay, we'll try. Well, but see, I gave you notes, so you guys can study it out too after we're done, right? So here we have the head, which is Rosh, and we have the tail. So since we're talking head and tail, let's look at them together. So the tail is a knob. One's Gemantria is 501, and one's Gemantria is 59. Hey, little Chris, what is 501 minus 59? What? 501.
42.
442. So let's see if that has meaning. Was there a word that has the number of 442? Oh, yes. It's batam, and it means with integrity. It comes from the root meaning completeness and integrity. Oh, what kind of characteristic does that sound like? The head and integrity. Does that not sound like the bride? Should we not walk in integrity? Could it be that the ones he's going to make the head and promote, and the ones he's going to bless are those that will walk in a way that they themselves, they walk with integrity, and even though they're stretched and squeezed and pressed, they're not going to allow their flesh, their heel, because remember, the heel represents the flesh, the head represents the spirit in Hebrew. They're not going to let their flesh dictate how you respond. That we walk with integrity. Okay, here we go again. Now, the word beneath. Let's look at that word. It's matah. I don't know if I have that in your notes.
Yes, you do.
Okay. It means downwards or below, but its root, its three-letter root is a Shemitah, and it seems that if it's the cycle of the Shemitah, that it's going to reveal what's birthed, what's made manifest in our life. It also is important to note that, well, every 7th year you're supposed to read. Have you guys ever been at Sukkot when we read the whole book of Deuteronomy? Okay, well, every 7th year we do that. So you read it in the evenings in our evening message. We don't do it all at once. We break it down every night. So that would take a little bit. Anyway, so we have the word humbled. I'm going to go through this really fast because we only have a few minutes, but it's to be occupied or busied to humble oneself, to exercise oneself in anything, to labor. So when you put that in there, when you're adding all these words to make an understanding what Shemitah is about, we have this opportunity for Israel to exercise and labor towards their ability to testify, to shout, to bring forth the Torah, to bring forth its understanding. And I have a few other words in there that are going to play along with it. I'm going to let you read those notes real quick. But here we have this idea that the Torah, when we have this idea of the Torah being read at Shemitah, it was to be compared what's being read and declared and what's being produced. So when we read, when the word is being read aloud, and that doesn't only happen at the Shemitah year when you're reading the Torah at Sukkot, it can happen anytime we read the word. How many of you use the word when you read it as a mirror to yourself? Oh, that's what I'm supposed to look like, and that's what I'm supposed to be. I got to work on that one. Because really, it is a mirror. The Torah is a mirror for us to look and examine our own lives. So here's the next question. Does their fruit, does our walk, does their walk, our lifestyle, their lifestyle, does it look like what the Torah says? Does it look like what his word says? Does it show that we should be released from debt? That we should be set free? That we should have our rights granted and restored? That we should be declared innocent? Does our walk in life show that we should be declared innocent? Now let's look at come. We're going to sing today about Bo, Yeshua, Bo. Well, we're going to have those words in one of our songs anyway. Come. It is Bo. To go, to enter, to come. It's conjugated. Well, I've got a lot, and I don't want to bring confusion. It's not going to bring confusion, but it's Taba, and it can the Shabbat or the Shemitah be a place of safety during times of judgment? Absolutely. Do you guys think that Shabbat, that's our wedding ring, is a place of safety?
Yes. And when we have conjugal visits.
Yeah, there you go, because we're intimate with our Father. How many of us have faced trials where it seems that it's always an issue to try to gather on Shabbat?
Yeah.
Of course it is. Because does the enemy want to keep the bride from gathering with her bridegroom?
Yeah.
From iron sharpening iron, from the worship to go forth. And here's what I always tell people when they come to me with counsel and they say, well, every Shabbat this and this happens. I say, well, every Shabbat you let it happen. And if the enemy found what works, and he's going to make sure it happens every time. Well, I get a headache every week. I don't have it any other day of the week, but then we know what the formula, we know where that's from.
Yep.
And you've got to put your foot down and say no. It's just like the job thing we talked about earlier. Because it's important. If it's Shabbat, yes, we can rest, we can do it our own, but he calls a holy convocation on Shabbat. That means we come together. There are people that cannot come together. Like Bob. Bob's driving all over. Nancy's at home. She's not in a place where congregations are. Joe, you guys don't, well, some of you know Joe. Joe has been healed of blindness in the name of Yeshua, but she lives in a place where there's no congregation. Coy's at home in Tulia, Texas, and he went to Sukkot with us last year, and he was going to be here for Pesach, but some things happened, and you know, they're gathering with us nonetheless. They are still making the effort to gather. How easy would it be? Okay, I'll look like I'm gathering. I'll turn on the computer if I can't. You know, if I'm in a place where there's no congregation, I'll turn on the computer and walk away. I'll look like it. No, Yah sees beyond our look likes. He wants to know what the real thing is within us, right?
Yes.
I said you're healed of blindness. I said you were already healed of blindness, Joe. She said, I'm not blind. I can see, just not allowed to drive. Oh, I want to get more testimony on that. Anyway, there's things that happened when she was at Sukkot with us 2 years. Her eyes, it went from one place to another. We were out there and God told me I was going to sort of skip worship on the last night because several people had left. So here we are. It's the 8th great day. It's the
And I
evening
you
of-
were told to play the song that you said you weren't gonna play.
I wasn't going to play anything. And I was standing there about to give the word. And I'm telling you, Yah brought me out. He said, go get your guitar. And I was like, and I was sitting, everybody was watching me. I was making these faces as I was like, go get your guitar and play the music now. And I was like, I'm sure my face expressed everything because I wasn't saying a word, but I was getting spanked by God. And so I went and got the guitar out, and we had
You
this.
told me to go get the flag.
And I told her to go get the flags. I said, God told us to worship. And we did. And Joe was sitting there worshiping, and all of a sudden she could see the definitions in the leaves on the trees and things. And we had other miracles too that happened during that last service. Gather. We're supposed to gather. And so that was, and she says, I can still see like I did. Oh, it was so awesome. Anyway, more proof. We need to listen to God, right? So we have this word come that goes, and also meat that comes, the food, devouring and consuming. And you can read more on those as we go because we've only got like 8 minutes. So let's go down to Shemitah. Shemitah has a root that means letting drop off, exaction, release. And it comes from 8058 Shemat, which means to release, to drop, to lose, to smite, to strike. In Jeremiah 17:4, it refers to Israel losing their inheritance, okay? Do you think maybe that we're being given a choice of what we're going to lose and what we're going to gain? Okay, we're almost done, guys. So here,
Can I ask a real quick question?
sure.
How do you find the Gemantria numbers?
The letters, I should send you a sheet. Each letter equals a certain number. I will send, if I have your email, I'll send everybody a sheet on that. Because it has like Aleph, Bet, Bet. Aleph is the 1, Bet is 2, and Gimel is 3. And so each of those things equal a certain number. And then it starts multiplying after that. So I will see.
The other is 10, and the one that comes after you is, it goes by.
I will see if I can send you guys the sheet with the Hebrew alphabet, Aleph, Bet, and the numbers beside. How does that sound?
That's good. Even the
Okay.
final forms have a Gemantria.
All right, so here's where I want to get to because this is going to point exactly to what we're saying. So I want to squeeze this in since it doesn't look like we're going to finish. That the word Shemitah contains a 3-letter root of sotah. Does everybody remember what sotah is? Sotah is when the bride had to drink where she was accused of adultery. Yes.
And it either proved her innocent.
It proved her innocent or she had children. We know Tamar was accused, and what she do? She had kids. But the Shemitah will either reveal to us to be the sotah, the adulterous bride, the one who turned aside, turned to adultery, turned to other lovers, let other things be planted and other seed be planted in her head. Or it's going to reveal to us as the matah, the in the house, the rod in the house. It's interesting that Aaron's rod budded, but why did Aaron's rod bud? It was going through this testing. Aaron was being tested, remember? Oh, Aaron shouldn't be the leader. We should all, who said Aaron should be the boss? I'm paraphrasing. That's not how scripture puts it. And remember, they got all the rods together and Aaron's rod budded, but it was during a test that it budded. The woman who was accused of adultery upon taking the bitter waters of jealousy, if she conceived, she was innocent, right? And if she had only ever been with her husband in that intimate place, she bore fruit. Matthew 7:20 says, wherefore by your fruits you shall be known. The bride will be known by her fruits. Now, I have some other words on there. Shadon, hold, oxen. I want you guys to read through them because it goes on to sort of show us, like Uzzah. What did Uzzah touch? Uzzah, remember, he reached out to touch the ark. And I have on there, like I said, read through it. But it shows us when we put those words together that the punishment for the dog of the harlot was burning. Okay, the daughter of a priest. Okay, Tamar was the daughter of a priest, and she was told to be burned. And then Judah was like, "Oh, that's my stuff. Okay, you're more righteous than me." Remember, Tamar went out and she conceived a child by Judah because anyway.
Because he failed to keep his promise.
Because he didn't keep his word, et cetera, and she was declared to be more righteous, and she bore fruit. Well, Uzzah, of course, died when he reached out to touch the ark, and it shows us that the Shemitah will judge us as either having played the harlot, the adulterous bride, the sotah, or we will be declared innocent. What happened to Uzzah? Uzzah was judged. Was he judged? He was judged. What did he do? He reached to take hold. He take hold to seize something. And the root of the term achaz is achazu. I can't say that right. I didn't write down the pronunciation. Anyway, it means which means possession. It refers specifically to the possession of the promised land. Uzzah means strength. Uzzah, in his own strength, tried to gain possession of the inheritance, the ark, that rightfully belongs to the bride. Okay? Then I have the word oxen there. And on that, I want us to understand when you go through all of this, that it's all pointing to a bride who receives the seed, who's going to bear the fruit. And we're reminded at the very end of the Torah portion, it's talking about idolatry. One more time, didn't we just sort of briefly mention idolatry at the beginning? At the very end of the Torah portion, it's talking about idolatry, but in Leviticus 26:1, it says, "You shall make no idols, nor graven images, neither rear you up a standing image, neither shall you set up any image of stone in your land to bow down to, for I am your Elohim." Do you see how it just talked about idols 4 times in one sentence? But guess what? Every word they used is different. God does things on purpose when he writes. Yes or no?
Yes.
So when you look at the total gematria of these words, it's 1,148. The 1,148th verse of the Torah is Genesis 38:28. And it came to pass when she travailed that the one put out his hand, and the midwife took and bound upon his hand a scarlet thread, saying they came out first. Well, who was that? That was Tamar's son Perez. And he came out, and who was he? He was part of the lineage of Yeshua, who is our Redeemer, who is our life, who redeemed us, right? And Perez was bound with the scarlet thread. We can be redeemed. We can be provided for, and we can lack nothing. We can be the head. We can be that bride that shows forth fruit with Yeshua who stands in the gap if we follow him. And that to me is the message of Shemitah. What is the seed that's bearing fruit in this year that we have sown and been sowing over and over again? Because that's the field of our life. That is a reflection of what's happening within us. When all those words that keep pointing back to birth and conception and the sotah and idolatry, it all comes together. So that's there's more I want to talk about, rest more I want to talk about eating, but we can get there. So that's what we have today. I want to thank you guys for joining us, and blessings to you, and we will see you on the other side at service. Elias is not here today, so Torah portion is ending here because we have worship. Blessings to you. Shabbat shalom.
Thank you. Good job.